The skies above Puerto Rico have turned into a thunderous spectacle. In what appears to be a massive and sudden deployment, dozens of U.S. Army helicopters, Black Hawks, Chinooks, perhaps even some special operations craft, have roared overhead, flying in large formations that cast long shadows over the island's lush terrain. They are followed by thousands of American troops landing on the ground, streaming out of aircraft, disembarking from transport vehicles, setting up command posts, unloading supplies. The scale of the operation has taken residents and observers alike by surprise. Videos flooding social media show rotor wash whipping up dust, troops moving through coastal towns and jungle edges, and heavy equipment being brought ashore or inland. Local residents, accustomed to hurricanes and seasonal weather turbulence, are unprepared for this level of military force. The question on everyone's lips: what is happening? Official explanations are still vague. But what is known from reporting is that the U.S. is dramatically ramping up its presence in the Caribbean, using Puerto Rico as a staging ground. According to sources, the U.S. has already deployed stealth fighters, F-35 jets, to the island for missions targeting drug trafficking networks in the southern Caribbean. Additional amphibious landings and naval assets have been positioned nearby. The argument from Washington: the island's geographic position makes it a strategic hub for operations against narcotics, smuggling, and associated criminal or narco-terror groups in nearby countries. Residents, however, are uneasy. For some in Puerto Rico, this evokes memories of past U.S. military training seasons, environmental damage, and concerns about sovereignty. The sudden arrival of helicopters, the visible buildup of troops and gear, and the secrecy around the mission's duration or precise objectives have generated anxiety, even protest. Meanwhile, in Washington, the deployment is being framed as part of a real-world exercise to defend the American homeland from illicit medication flows and organized crime, though critics question the legal and diplomatic implications of the buildup. In short, this is a routine training exercise. Whatever is happening in Puerto Rico is part of a major strategic surge by the U.S. military, and the island now finds itself at the center of a much larger regional operation. The Pentagon has attempted to quell growing speculation by releasing an official statement, describing the sudden influx of troops and aircraft in Puerto Rico as a pre-planned, large-scale readiness exercise. According to officials, the operation is designed to test the U.S. military's ability to rapidly deploy forces, establish command and logistical networks, and operate effectively in a tropical environment. The statement emphasized coordination with local authorities and emergency services, suggesting that the exercise would also enhance disaster response capabilities in the region. Yet, for many Puerto Ricans witnessing convoys of armored vehicles rolling through their streets and helicopters thundering overhead, the explanation feels incomplete. The island's residents, still bearing the scars of devastating hurricanes and years of uneven federal support, are uneasy about the scale and intensity of the show of force. Social media has erupted with skepticism, questions, and a swirl of alternative theories. Some fearing that the exercise may mask deeper geopolitical motives. Others point to the island's long, complex history as a U.S. territory. While officials insist the exercise poses no threat to civilians, the optics of thousands of armed soldiers landing on Puerto Rican soil have reignited old debates about sovereignty, trust, and transparency in U.S. Puerto Rico relations. Tio fully grasped the unease sweeping across Puerto Rico. It's necessary to look back at the island's fraught relationship with the U.S. military. For decades, Puerto Rico, particularly the island of Vieques, served as a training and bombing range for the U.S. Navy. Residents endured constant detonations, displacement, and long-term environmental damage. The protests that eventually forced the Navy to withdraw in 2003 became a defining moment in the island's modern history, a symbol of resistance against militarization and disregard for local voices. That legacy remains deeply ingrained in the collective consciousness. The sudden appearance of Black Hawks, Chinooks, and thousands of armed soldiers inevitably revives those old memories of being treated as a strategic outpost rather than a community with its own agency. For many Puerto Ricans, the current readiness exercise feels less like a protective measure and more like a haunting echo of the past, an unsettling reminder that their land has often been used for purposes decided far from their shores. This historical weight makes it difficult for official reassurances to ease public concern. No statement, however polished, can quickly erase decades of mistrust rooted in experiences where training operations came at the expense of the people who call the island home. On the ground, the U.S. troops deployed across Puerto Rico are reportedly engaged in a series of coordinated exercises centered on disaster relief and humanitarian response. Military convoys have been spotted setting up temporary field hospitals, water purification systems, and communication hubs in rural and coastal areas. Engineers are conducting simulated repairs to damaged roads and power grids, while logistics teams practice delivering emergency supplies under time pressure. Helicopter crews are training in aerial evacuations and medical transport, mirroring real-life hurricane or earthquake scenarios that have historically devastated the island. Pentagon officials emphasize that these drills are not combat-oriented but are designed to test readiness in the face of natural disasters, a critical focus given Puerto Rico's vulnerability to hurricanes and its aging infrastructure. The goal, they claim, is to ensure that when the next crisis strikes, the U.S. military can mobilize rapidly and coordinate seamlessly with local and federal agencies to save lives. Still, while the exercises are presented as humanitarian in nature, their massive scale, sophisticated equipment, and troop numbers suggest a level of operational depth that goes beyond simple disaster practice. For residents watching from the ground, the line between preparedness and projection of power feels increasingly blurred. This massive deployment places Puerto Rico at critical crossroads, caught between reassurance and unease, necessity and symbolism. On one hand, the Pentagon insists this is a vital readiness drill, a proactive effort to ensure that U.S. forces can respond swiftly and effectively to the next major crisis. Given the island's frequent exposure to hurricanes, earthquakes, and other natural disasters, the ability to mobilize large-scale humanitarian aid could indeed save countless lives in the future. The establishment of field hospitals, logistics hubs, and emergency communication networks demonstrates the kind of rapid coordination that disaster-prone regions desperately need. Yet, on the other hand, the sight of thousands of troops and fleets of helicopters descending upon Puerto Rico cannot be separated from the island's complex colonial and military past. For many residents, it's impossible to see the exercise purely as a benevolent act of preparedness.